In their first month, you now have some data, right? You kind of have a sense of how are things going. They've had a chance to catch their breath. They have some data as a manager. And so the question is, where do you strike a balance in that first month between micromanaging them and just knowing that things are going well? So often what happens is we promote somebody into a management role and we zoom out and we hope they've got it covered because we don't want to micromanage them. Like I said earlier, they're confident, we thought they had it, and now we just hope they figured it out. And if they don't, we start to get annoyed because we have, meanwhile, a lot of other things to deal with. And this is a problem. So in that first month, what I encourage you to do is come in and have a really clear grasp as to what success should look like. So they should know it, you should know it. And then you should be connecting with them on a weekly basis to see, maybe even twice a week, to see how are things going, what's the goal, what are the goals for your team members, how's progress happening, what can I help you with? How can I support you? Right? This is an opportunity to ask them those coaching questions that you have in your back pocket, right? Making sure that they understand that you're there for them as a partner, but you're not going to do their job. You're not going to tell them how to do their job. And you're certainly not going to criticize them for not doing it perfectly because it's their first month. So that, again, this starts to create that safety and trust with you and that new manager so that you can get an honest feel for how things are going. The other thing you'll need to do is go have conversations with the manager's direct report. Make this really clear. Tell the manager, hey, as part of your onboarding process, I'm going to go have conversations with each of your direct reports throughout the month and throughout the first quarter, just to see how things are going. And then from there, I'll be having skip level meetings on a quarterly basis with your direct reports. And I invite you to have a skip level meeting with my manager so that you see that this is how the company operates. And so now you've just set the stage to say, I'm going to talk with your direct reports and make sure that they're getting the support they need and help facilitate wherever I can by having conversations with you in private. It's really just more about making sure you have a pulse of how things are going. Then you're going to have these meetings. And by the first month, you should have a really clear idea as to what goals are on track and where we might need to adjust. This is where you're going to emphasize collaboration between the new manager and their superiors. So that could be you, that could be your peers, it could be senior leaders in other departments that just have kind of a dotted line to them, reminding them that this is where goals are going to happen and help them understand what the priorities are for their team. You'll also help them create some feedback loops, both between you and them, but also between them and their direct reports. One-on-ones can't be valued enough, but also make sure they have the tools to deliver feedback in real time. The more asynchronous and kind of remote we are as an organization, whichever organization you are, the more remote you are, the more important it is that they get really good at asynchronous feedback that is direct, concise, and not loaded with any other meaning. And so the way that you can support them in doing that is through your one-on-one conversations, but also through demonstrating it as well. So training comes in here, but it's at this point we're just catching our breath. We're just starting to make sure the mechanisms are in place. These feedback conversations are happening. There's nobody on their team that is underperforming and not getting feedback. And most importantly, that we remind them that everybody on their team that is performing or doing things well needs to be getting that feedback also. So are they getting the feedback to say, hey, you're doing your job really well. Specifically, this is having an impact on that. Keep it up. What can I do to support you to make sure that we keep doing it this way? And then in this first month, we also want, they've had a chance to catch their breath. So we want to make sure they have a sense of what resources will they need to be successful with their team. This is where they might realize that their goal is a little too ambitious given their team size. It's also where they might realize that each of their team members have been operating without enough resources. And the occasional manager will realize in this first month that maybe they have people on their team that aren't doing much and they could be moved to other teams. So there's an opportunity here to say, okay, do you have everything you need to be successful? Now, why does this happen now and not later or earlier? If you have this conversation today, at this point we know what our goals are. We've already talked about, now at this point we've talked about it at least 2 or 3 times, hopefully more. Here's what your team is supposed to be doing. Here's how I would, as your supervisor, this is how I would see success. Here are some signals I'd be looking for. I'm noticing that we're not seeing those signals. What can we do to course correct? Well, now you can point back to these conversations you've had. You can say, well, remember when we talked about X, you committed to doing Y. How is that going? Or how are the results coming out? If they say in this conversation, we don't have the resources to be successful, and here's what I need instead, you have an opportunity to have a conversation around the like, is it realistic to get new resources? And if not, what can we do instead? Can we adjust the goal? Can we get creative with our resources? Is there a level of resourcefulness you're expecting? But now we're having this conversation at month 1 instead of month 18, right? So this is where we intervene as quickly as possible. And the more structure for yourself you can put in this onboarding process from an individual contributor to a manager, the less likely you are to get into a situation 12 or 18 months, 2 years from now, where this manager was clearly not up for the job, but nobody intervened because nobody was paying attention. So this is the goal here. Similarly, you want to intervene and get brought up to speed on those managers that are just crushing it, but nobody was paying attention, because those are your future directors. Those are the mentors you want coaching other managers. Make sure that we have this feedback loop happening very early for everybody.